Everything all good?
I yes, we can hear you. Great.
Awesome. Looking forward.
Looking forward to it as well. How's everyone everyone good? Where are you based, Mia?
I'm in Singapore right now, so
Oh,
like late
okay.
night, but
Okay. Thanks for dialing in.
yeah,
Yeah, I
we're
think
all over the world. Yeah,
that's the beauty of crypto, right? You're all over
I
the
know.
world and you kind of make your own time zone.
I know. That's what, why good morning and good nights are happening at the same time in greeting.
Exactly. Exactly. Nice. Well, I think we're right at 3 o'clock. Well, 3 o'clock at my time. I'm based out of London, but we're at the top of the hour where everyone is. So I think we're just going to get started with our roundtable for today. So for everyone that's dialed in, we do record these sessions, and for people who want to listen to it afterwards or listen to it again. Um, and of course, welcome everyone again to another edition of our roundtable. That is hosted by Morningstar Ventures, and today we're going to be focusing on crypto infrastructure and how that's building the future of the internet. So we have three very interesting projects with us today. And the reason why we wanted to dive deeper into this is, with topics such as privacy and transparency and also interoperability becoming more prominent in the crypto space, and also crypto moving into a somewhat more developed ecosystem where many projects are looking to scale their solutions. We wanted to see from three infrastructure projects how they are contributing to that and helping other projects grow. So, joining our panel today is Mia, the CMO at Mystiko Network, and also Joshua Tobkin, the co founder of Supra Oracles, and also Aniket Jindal, the co founder of Biconomy. Welcome, everyone. And before we get started, we always do a round of introductions with our speakers. But if you haven't joined one of our sessions before, the way it usually works is me, I'm your host, Ninety, and my co-host, Peter. We will be asking our guests a series of questions for about 30 to 40 minutes and engage in a dialogue. And then at the end of the session, we will open it up for a live Q&A from the audience. So if you do have any questions that pop up during the discussion, do feel free to put that in the comments section and we will address them towards the end. Otherwise, if you want to talk to our guests directly, at the end, you can request to speak and ask your question. So that will be something to look forward to. Now, let's get started with a quick round of introductions from our guests. Mia, Joshua, Aniket, thank you again for joining. If you could please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about how you got started in crypto and give us a little bit of an introduction also about your projects. Mia, why don't you go first?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us. I'm super happy to meet all the Morningstar community members and happy to share our thoughts on what crypto infrastructure is and the future of internet. So I'm super excited about discussing this topic with everyone. So quick intro. My name is Mia, and I'm the CMO and head of community for Mystiko Network. And Mystiko Network is the we would like to build a privacy infrastructure for both developer and users in Web3. Basically, what we did is that we use technology to build a multi-chain privacy SDK that could be easily tapped into any DEX, any wallets, etc., to allow users to enjoy private transaction, which and it doesn't matter which assets, which chain your assets are on. I know that you feel like an interesting story about how I get started in crypto. My story is really random. So basically, I was in grad school and my roommates are one of the, he's a pretty cool strategic game player and he did a really good job in playing games, of course, winning a lot of tokens, which is not NFT back then. And he wants to cash out. And the way that he tried to cash out is to, convert the coins into blockchain and blockchain into fiat. I'm not sure whether he sold all this Bitcoin back in the days, but if he didn't, I accidentally witnessed how someone's wealth grows significantly overnight by playing games and involving in crypto. So that's how I get started to know about get started in crypto, and then how I know about it. But anyway, so after graduation, I've been really active in crypto space and involved with a couple of crypto projects, and also joined an exchange and exit. But right now, I'm mostly focusing on Mystical and looking forward to build infrastructure that I think, based on our experience, would be really helpful to bring crypto to a broader adoption scale.
Great. Thanks for the introduction, Mia. Joshua, how about you? How did you get started?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Josh Tobkin, co-founder CEO at Supra Oracles. How did I get started? Well, getting kind of old here in my late 30s, but about 20 years ago, I created my first website. Actually, about 24 years ago, I created my first website in GeoCities and kind of just playing around and trying to figure this out. And I always knew that I was going to have to do something on the internet because this is obviously transformative technology. So that actually is a kind of basic origin story, but more recently, I should kind of fast forward to 2016, 2017. I'm in San Francisco. Um, I get introduced to Ethereum. Of course, I've heard about Bitcoin, but I actually was not early Bitcoin. And when I did hear about Ethereum, because my focus was in the SaaS industry, software as a service, where you kind of try to centralize everything and try to really focus on high performance and low latency. When I heard about Ethereum, it just didn't make any sense to me, to be honest. And actually, I kind of ignored it for into like maybe March 2017. But one of my colleagues at that point showed me her wallet. She had invested $10,000, and this is as superficial as it is. It is a true story. When she showed me $100,000 in her wallet, I hadn't seen anything like that before in a matter of like a couple of months or like 4 or 5 months. That got my attention, and then I reflected upon my past experience, realizing actually I do see that there are some trust issues here. I guess I should mention 15 years ago, I did run a rakeback cashback business, online business in online poker. So what that is when players play online poker, you pay a rake to the casino or the poker room. And what we did is we basically said, hey, look, we got 5,000, 6,000 players. We can bring them to your ecosystem. Give us a good deal, right? And what we do is we take 50% of the revenue, redistribute it, like 80 to 90% of it back to the players and keep the margin. So it was kind of an early cashback for online gaming. Of course, when online poker became illegal in the United States, I was USA based. I'm an American. Back then, like I figured it's time to sell my shares to my partner. He did continue to operate this internationally, did very well, and actually got very early into Bitcoin as a result. But I kind of went down a different path. I actually worked for kind of intelligence companies in New York City, ad tech companies, kind of working for the enemy, so to speak. When I put that in quotations, but I actually got a hell of an education, where we created kind of identity systems and profiles. I kind of joke that the company was kind of similar to Cambridge Analytica, except we were not exactly involved in swaying elections. But that kind of data-driven marketing perspective really shaped my perspective in many things. Fast forward a little bit later, when they opened an office in San Francisco, I was the third employee to join there. I did transition to be a consultant, and I launched my own SaaS software as a service product. And that's kind of intermingling back to the story here. Long story short, actually, when I got introduced to Ethereum, and I found out that I really did not get it, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not like some brilliant person like I got it immediately. I really didn't get it. But then I reflected on like my times at the rakeback company 15 years prior, or like at that stage 12 years prior. And actually, I did used to complain all the time to my partner that these online poker rooms are not giving us transparent data, and there's zero way for us to prove our claims. I just intuitively knew that the data they're feeding us was not correct, that they're skewing more from the top. And then once I realized that, I was like, okay, this thing can actually be a big deal. I understood that there's a trust issue in the world, and I understood that there's a coordination issue in the world. Long story short, that's kind of the genesis. In between, just to give you the hyper speed kind of version of this, we did create a crypto lab with my co-founder, John Jones, who is a Berkeley graduate. I was in San Francisco, but he said, come to Taiwan, right? Even I've never been to Taiwan, but he was living in Taiwan. He had set up a accelerator in Taipei. I'd never been there, but it was a better place to bootstrap than San Francisco. We did enter the bear market. We barely survived. and we got into IoT meets blockchain. And long story short, that was the origin of us getting to the Oracle space. Sorry if that was a little bit too long-winded. That's the story.
Great introduction. I like that it all circles back at some point, and also that you made your way to Taiwan. Yeah, thanks again, Joshua and Mia. Aniket, last but not least.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I kind of also go kind of a bit long, in crypto. It's been over 7+ years. When I kind of think about it, it kind of seems like an eternity. I happened to be in China in 2016 as I was doing my master's from MIT Sloan and Fudan, as a part of which I was in Shanghai for about a year and a half. I think the very first month of the course, I happened to be in a Bitcoin meetup. So that was at that point of time organized by like Chinese OGs, includes like Sunny Lu, Bobby Lee, the Hang Fei, etc., etc. And just talking about Bitcoin, and just like small meetup of like 30 people or something. Never made any sense to me. I was like, probably it's something, like I just got over my head. I never paid any attention. But something interesting happened the same week. In India, at the same time, there was demonetization. So just to make you guys aware about what demonetization was in India. So the government of India just overnight kind of banned 500 and 1,000 rupee notes. So those currencies were kind of not valid anymore in the country, and that kind of created like a big mess and chaos around the entire like states in India. And at the same time, it kind of triggered me into blockchain and like what all like Bitcoin can unlock at that point of time. So that was an entry point for me in the space. Since then it's been a rabbit hole, been a lot of things happening here and there. Fortunately enough, I ended up joining Binance. So I was one of the first interns at Binance. So like smaller team of 30 people. This is back in 17. So learned mostly all about exchanges and like cryptocurrencies right over there only. Moved to India in 2018, where got involved in the ecosystem and started just learning about blockchains in depth. Worked with like a couple of projects on a personal capacity. That includes guys from Matic and few other projects from India. Sort of realized that UX is one of the major issues by which we can definitely achieve sort of mass adoption, because back then there was no DeFi, NFT, metaverse, or any of the buzzwords we kind of hear. But there were definitely like a lot of chains claiming to be like, building like their own communities and creating like next generation applications, but no one was using it. In fact, I was like, frustrated to use MetaMask. It took me like 3 to 4 days. I was like, okay, if this is how the user experience gonna be, probably there's gonna be a better way. And that's how Biconomy got started. And it's been 4 years been working on this.
Thanks. Great introduction, great background for all of our great guests. And I would like to start with the short icebreaker question. Which protocol breach or other infrastructure solution in the Web3 industry you were recently impressed by, of course, except of your own project? So Joshua, as Supra Oracle's partners with a lot of companies, probably you will take this one first.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, since you threw in the additional, like you can't talk about your own project, I have to rebel and say, actually, what we are doing is we feel is very compelling. We got accepted to top academic journals, which means like peer reviewed, etc. That said, I'm going to say something a little bit controversial. Okay. And in blockchain, in my personal experience, there are two founders in particular that I have a lot of respect for. One is, of course, Vitalik, right? Of course, okay, three. Satoshi, of course, and then Vitalik. The third, though, is controversial, which is Anatoly from Solana. And I think what they're doing at Solana is incredibly important for, just opening the space towards, parallel execution and data dissemination. And while some people do think that the protocol is incomplete because of liveness failures, and I get that, I'm not saying it's perfect either, but I do want to pay homage where homage is due and say that, Anatoly's work with Solana is opened up a new kind of angle for everyone in the industry to think and learn about in terms of high performance parallel execution, X, Y, and Z. So while it's not super popular for some folks to talk about Solana like that, I do want to pay homage where credit's due, because they really did open all our minds towards like hardware optimization, aka assigning execution across multiple cores and being thoughtful about fee markets, etc. This is very important for our space. So that is the kind of contrarian answer that I have.
Cool. Thank you. Great answer. Really interesting, especially for those people who are not very involved in the Solana ecosystem. Mia, what do you think?
Yeah, I think like, yeah, those are really covers a lot of stuff, including like layer one. I think all of them are pretty essential for development of the Web3 world. And I mean, I'm always impressed by Ethereum, kind of like the beginning of basically what we're building right now. And I can see that a lot of ecosystems is evolving and developing from there. And I think that there has been a lot of discussion and solution to see how, you know, how we could scale what we have right now on Ethereum onto different chains. And I think layer ones, other layer ones, like in that, like earlier, Solana could be one of them. And but I also think like recently layer twos, different kind of layer twos are also essentials for the ecosystem. Because our project has been, you know, our scientists have been focusing on ZK and see how it could be used as a tool to improve privacy and interoperability. So I think the fellow developers in ZK or in Aztec, etc., and all these and the solution like this that could balance scalability and maybe a bit of privacy are something that we would be interested in looking at and also working with. So those are some of the projects that I think recently would be interesting to look at. But of course, like having said that, there are always new idea and new solution popping up, and I'm always excited to learn more about, you know, what are new and what new infrastructure solutions are out there. And I think this space but would love to hear about other people's idea on what those could be, and we're more than happy to partner with them.
Thanks, Mia. We will touch the topic of ZK and privacy a bit later. And Aniket, which solutions were you recently impressed by?
Yeah. I think firstly I want to back Joshua, and even I'm like a big fan of Solana, so it's not unpopular opinion. It's a bit popular. I've been like following their work for quite some time now, so really awesome work they've been doing. For me, I kind of gonna categorize into two ways, and these are like a bit smaller applications, but I've been like really impressed in terms of the nitty-gritties and the thoughtfulness they had. The first is Third Web. This is actually recently, like, you know, in fact, in our town hall call as well in the company, we've been like, you know, thinking more about how easy they have made like for developers to actually like, you know, integrate all the SDKs and APIs. So I'm a big fan of the thoughtfulness by which like Third Web has created for developers and how easy they have made for anyone to, you know, like simplify the UX in the space. So kudos to them, and they've been killing it over the last couple of months. Second approach is more on our user-facing application, because in crypto we don't have that many user-facing application. The only popular application people use probably like perps and, you know, like Dexes. But of late I've been hooked to this application called Dialect. It's a you know, P2P messaging app where they have like gamified the entire you know, NFT experience, and it's pretty cool. Like, you know, I'm sure like people will get hooked to it, or you can exchange stickers with each other. It's like one of the good Web3 social application that I've seen in the past few months actually. So these are the two, you know, like projects I've been like following very rigorously, and also like I'm pretty impressed with the development they've done.
Thank you, Aniket. And during all these answers, you all mentioned a lot of technologies, layer ones or layer two scalability solutions. And here I want to touch the topic of education, because education is one of the most important ways of bringing blockchain technology to a wide audience. And in your opinion, what are the easiest methods to understand and learn about Web3 infrastructure, and what's missing to be able to onboard more users and make them understand all these complicated and technical concept of crypto infrastructure? Who wants to go next with this one?
I'm happy to jump in here. Shall I go first?
Yeah. Go ahead, Joshua.
Okay, thank you, Aniket. So, you know, I want to be clear that, you know, for the first question, you know, I am paying homage where homage is due, especially for the innovations and what the Solana community, especially Anatolia, brought to the world. I also want to pay homage to Sui and Aptos, the Movelang ecosystems, right? Who are also inheriting and pioneering these kind of parallel execution models and other things. Just the whole community in general, we're actually really small, and it's so concentrated with such tremendous minds. So we want to pay homage where homage is due across the board there. To answer your question about education, I don't know 100% what the answer is, but I know what we are doing. And this is happening next Tuesday or Wednesday next week, which is a gamified learn to earn program. Now, just to give you some context, in late January, we had launched this thinking we'd have 8 to 10,000 participants in our gamified learn to earn program instead of just pure airdrops. And we thought we'd, just kind of do a beta run, see how this goes. And it actually blew up. It was hyper viral. And within 5.5 days, we had 230,000 signups. And these are, by the way, of which 150,000 KYC didn't finish. So we do KYC. Now, really this comes down to, and this is a huge eye-awakener for me, is can you incentivize learning by, economic incentives? The answer is yes, you can. You have to be very thoughtful about it, of course. But our gamified learn earn program requires you to study, listen, and think about how you educate. You have multiple modalities. You have hearing, you have reading, you have video. It incorporates multimedia, and you also have to answer the questions right to kind of earn more stars, and the more stars can ultimately translate to eventually super tokens. But I guess to kind of answer your question succinctly here, it comes down to a new field that we all have to focus on in the future, especially with the addition of Chatgpt and AI, which is learning experience design, right? So meet people where they're at and then give them the information they need so they can pick it up really quickly. I can give you a story. I got a full scholarship almost to study economics in New Jersey, second best school in New Jersey after Princeton. And my high school, when I asked the calculus teacher a simple question of, can you kind of explain to me what a function is in a way that I can understand, in a simpler way, actually, And you'd expect me to just completely understand this, but she could not answer me. She froze because actually she was just textbook based. But in the future, you ask these kind of questions, these inquisitive questions. How does the blockchain work? Why does this matter? How can I can I speech to text or speech to translation to transaction, interpretation? Can I do this? I know logically what I want to do, but maybe I don't know how to form that cryptographic signature for that transaction. Can AI help us create this transaction, right? These are the types of things that, the futures of our industry are going to be focusing more and more on learning experience design. And I want to say that Supra and our team has an excellent team around this, and we focus a lot on this. And keep your eye on us. Next week, sometime midweek, we're relaunching Project Blastoff, which we do believe will have over 1 million KYC participants, and I'm quite confident about that. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I think like answer is really interesting. I feel like your analogies on how you can make everyone daily people, everyone like even new beginners to understand what crypto is. They remind me that there's a book called The Mom's Test, basically about like how could simplify an idea, a complicated idea into a way that even a mom would understand. I think that would be an interesting book for everyone to read in terms of promoting, their product or for in general education. But in terms of how we can get more people to understand Web, in the Web3 native way, GameFi, learn to earn, etc., would be if those are really mainstream right now. And can everyone hear me right now?
You're cutting off just a little bit.
Oh, okay. Where was I?
Now
We can hear most of it, but please
Oh,
continue.
awesome. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just saying that, like, there are a lot of fun ways to onboard users, especially with Web3 native users, like GameFi and Earn. I think those are like some very interesting user onboarding procedures that a lot of later. I mean, even for Mystiko, we recently launched on BNB mainnet, and we are recently a new program to incentivize people to become one of the OG to try out our product and give us feedback. The project is still the campaign is still ongoing. Feel free to check it out on the website. But other than that, other than GameFi and NFT, I think just in general to bring in new user for Web3 industry, I think the is always coming back to the question of why people actually need blockchain and why does it matter to them in their real life. So I think in general having user application and real product that allow building lives to use blockchain and bring into their actual life is really important. So I think infrastructure, including global payment, working with Web2 traditional banks, are some of the way that we could help help bringing Web3 into a more mainstream um, media or in the mainstream audience. So I think in a nutshell, like combining Web2 promotion and also with the real life application, also having fun and onboarding a fun and engaging way to onboard users are something that we could definitely try exploring. But also but also it could be a joke, but not financial wise, is that maybe a lot of people if your NFT or your token have some really hype and interesting performance, I'm sure a lot of people will flood in and have a look at it. But not financial wise.
Just adding into it, I think a lot of projects, including us, have been spending a lot of time in general. Maybe like following the old school ways of spreading the awareness and education content around the community. That includes like sponsoring hackathons and exploring for more different talent. But of late, like what we have been also focusing on is making sure that we have more applications in the space. Crypto as industry needs more use cases and more applications, and and those applications should be like easy to use for everyone. Like we don't have that many applications. So if I ask anyone like what are like 10 applications you use on a daily basis, probably they can't even name 10. Like they will be limited to like few. So in terms of applications, definitely I would say like we need more user-facing application. That's sort of an initiative we have also started at Biconomy. Uh, we just launched our first incubator project called Obvious Wallet. I would definitely suggest everyone to kind of download and test it out. We try to make sure that the user experience becomes extremely simple, so that anyone who doesn't know crypto at all are still able to use an application. And we are still on a hunt for like more of these easy to use sort of applications. So if anyone in the audience has some ideas, sort of application they want to create, do hit me up. I'm always open to jam on these kind of things, and we can also support in other ways as well. So I think it's just like trying the pudding itself. We need more application. That's something would drive that option.
Yeah, you guys heard it. So if you have any good ideas, Aniket is open to hear them. And I think you guys all touched upon really important topics when it comes to educating the community and also the users as well as the builders. And back to kind of what you were saying, Joshua, I like the whole concept of the question, and also that you challenged your teacher back in the day to explain an easier version of a function. And you do see that a lot with AI, right? Like the agents are able to explain things in simpler terms. And we had a Twitter Spaces actually a couple of weeks ago where we were saying that actually the question is what's going to be the luxury in the future, and like asking the right question is going to be the way that we are also going to get the answer that we want. Which is obviously how it is now, but not everyone can answer it in the way that you want it to, or in a simpler term. So that's a really interesting concept. And just moving on a little bit from education and focusing more on your three projects specifically, Mia, I wanted to start off with you at Mystiko Network. So you're building, you were saying before, a privacy layer software development kit for blockchains, dApps, and also for wallets. And what we mentioned before is obviously that anonymity and also privacy in crypto, they're facing a bit more challenges, especially also seeing all of the regulatory action that is happening at the moment. So could you maybe dive a little bit deeper into how Mystiko Network copes with these regulatory barriers?
Of course, happy to share more. We definitely see there that the privacy developers and applications. For example, we saw Tornado Cash getting sanctioned overnight a year ago, and also recently started their ZK money. And I think a lot of the problem for privacy solution and the reason why they still have conflicts with regulation is that there are users using those tools for illegal activity, for example, money laundering, or they use it to launder money that come from major hackings. And when this emergency scenario happen, all of this protocol are not able to provide any proof support to support the AML action from regulator, and hence they all became one of the targets of the regulators and getting sanctioned because the regulator cannot find a good way to balance the demand of regular people and and at the same time weighing out the bad ones. So I think the ultimate question for privacy solution and how it could balance the demand for a regular user and an AML request is that how could they how could a protocol provide privacy to general users and filtering out the bad actor. And the answer or solution for Mystiko is that we build a very innovative feature called auditable CK. Basically, what Mystiko did is that we use CK technology to encrypt every transaction in the protocol in the smart contract level. But at the same time, and all of these transactions are private and could only be viewed by user and owned by users. However, the connection between the from and to address um, can still be reviewed only when the regulators provide proof saying that this particular user or this particular address is involved in illegal activity. And in this emergency scenario, Mystical will have a anonymous decentralized auditing committee, and they will have the key. Each of them will have the key to decode the connection between the from and to address and provide this proof to regulators. And in this case, Mystical will be able to work with the regulator when all the materials and proof are solid. At the same time, when for other transactions that are not involved in illegal activity, they still remain private because none of the auditor or regulator will be able to view it unless the decentralized auditing committee is kick off. So yeah, that's how Mystical is trying to find a way to balance the regulation requests and also protect the privacy of the regular user. Because we do believe that Web3 privacy is the basic right of everyone, but we're only protecting the privacy for the good, but not for the bad. And there will be a lot more technical details and explanation in our Medium and blog. So feel free to check it out or feel free to reach out to us. And we're more than happy to discuss if you have better solutions or suggestions on how we could make this process smoother for users and to balance, to balance regulation and privacy.
Thanks, Mia. Thanks for diving a bit deeper into your security layer and also how this works from both the technical and regulatory end. Moving on a little bit to now the data side of things. So Joshua, from Supra oracles, so your role of the oracles in crypto infrastructure is for dApps and also for protocols to have correct and relevant information transferred in a fast and secure way, as you were saying before. But what we still see is that many players in Web3 rely on centralized data feeds. So what are you doing there with Supra oracles?
Yeah, so first of all, let's talk about privacy just for a moment. Meaning, like as you just said, it is a human right and it's a big deal, and this is important. And at the same time, we have to balance, privacy, human rights with the regulatory ability to do what they need to do, enforcement. So the kind of world I do see we're moving into is open DeFi, like these open kind of communities will be the biggest communities, but then you'll also have other communities where they're basically kind of KYC and AML, so know your customer and anti-money laundering. This will be facilitated through DIDs, decentralized identities, and VCs, verifiable credentials. So like there's certain pools in the very near future, like it's going to happen probably by next year. There's going to be specific pools you cannot even enter it unless you have KYC and AML, but you can also still benefit from the peer-to-peer efficiencies of removing the middleman, right? There are many middlemen in certain trades, and especially global trade, especially in a 24-hour period, that don't necessarily have to be there. And this technology kind of makes it more efficient. But we are not going to live in a world that is only open and not private. We're going to have both. You're going to need both. Okay, so with that said, and that's why, by the way, we're big fans of any project that's doing privacy, from Mystiko to Aztec to Railgun to others, and we're in it with them. We're all in this together. Okay, so with that said, back to the data. The question was in relation to like how do we handle centralized data feeds? So let's kind of paint a picture here. The truth of the matter is, despite the layer 1 security guarantees that you're engaging on, you have now, if you use oracles, you reduce your security guarantee to the security of the oracle. A lot of times the oracle itself is the kind of blood line or life force to make these protocols happen in the first place. So you actually, to make this clear, you lose the layer 1 security guarantee in the moment that you use an oracle. Right. Now, this is why it's so important for us at Supra to apply layer 1 consensus algorithms to the Oracle problem so that the Oracle data itself has the same securities as the underlying infrastructure. Now, the thing is, and this is very evident by the fact that there are like 70, 80, 100 layer 1s, layer 2 subnets, parachains, cosmos zones, etc. out there, right? But there's a handful of oracles. This is indicative that actually the Oracle problem is way harder than the layer 1 problem, because you have to solve both data sources being Byzantine as well as node operators being Byzantine, or you have to get them to cryptographically sign their information. But even then, that's not enough, because you need to make sure you source the data from multiple sources. So how we address this is, basically we are applying layer 1 consensus algorithms to solve this problem. We have a very interesting and important calculation methodology where we form what's called the coherent cluster upon decentralized randomized reports across our node operators. And we also perform a couple of things such as historical consistency checks, aka we can look at the last 1,000 blocks and make sure that the deviations in the reported data is within the expected deviation. We can do kind of algorithmic computation, in what we do. Then what we do is we deliver the payload to the destination chain. In testnet, we're on 42 ecosystems, just to be clear. In mainnet, we're only on a handful. We're on Arbitrum, Sui, Aptos soon, and then we're about to deploy to 12 other EVM chains. Ironically, I paid homage to Solana earlier, but we're not going to deploy to Solana at the moment. Maybe within the next 6 months, however, perhaps, but not right now. But that's, basically you do need to get rid of single points of failure. It's very useful to apply layer 1 consensus principles to the oracle layer. And remember, if you use an oracle that does have different guarantees than the underlying layer 1 itself, you have reduced your security guarantees of your app to the security of the oracle. So please be careful about that.
Thanks, Joshua, for the great insights on connectivity of layer 1s with the off-chain data and using oracles and risks and challenges that you want to solve with the Supra. And besides all technical solutions that we have on the infrastructure layer, we know that Biconomy provides technologies for developers to create dApps with gasless transactions, simplify blockchain signatures, and have chainless user experience. Aniket, do you think that builders in the space should remove all, let's say, native Web3 attributes from their products to gain mass adoption of their products, for example, in wallets or just in dApps?
Oh, that's a good question. Really good question. Something to think about all the time. I think just to be correct here, like the whole concept of Biconomy and the way we started, and the way we function as a team is to empower developers to have more and more Web3, components within the application but those components should be hidden, from the users, like, so we wanna make sure that, that otherwise, like, no point of having a Web3 application, really, like a normal Web2, like centralized application. Why do we need that? But, you know, it shouldn't be, hampering the UX, all these Web3 components shouldn't be the one that's causing like no one to use those applications. So that's how, like, we as a company always think about in terms of how do we create products, how do we see adoption happening. So when we got started back then, I think, the elephant in the room, and still is, like, it's like gas, So when you see like Web2 users coming to Web3, and for any application, they have to, like, even if they don't do anything, like purchase anything, they have to pay for every transaction or operation they do. That still is a very broken model for end user. Of course, we need gas. That's how like blockchain is gonna perform, and it's gonna like have the security of the blockchain. But that gas shouldn't be like paid by the end users. It can be paid by a DApp developer or third party. It's pretty similar to how like if you go to YouTube or you go to Spotify, Spotify doesn't ask you to pay for every song. Initially, of course, there's subscription or something involved, but there's always a cost for every song, and that's paid by the DApp developer itself. So similar logic we kind of add to the dApps here as well, that there's a cost involved, for the user activity happening in the dApp that can be monetized by some other ways. So, again, like, long story short, like, we want to support more and more Web3 components in the application, but we want to make sure that all these things are kind of hidden from the users. In an ideal world, like, we want to make sure that, there are dApps where just end users are just using that apps without worrying about whether it's Solana, Sui, Aptos, at the back end. They're just using the application because they love the application. So that's why, like, our solution have been like integrated to over 300 plus applications. So if you use like, applications such as Decentraland, Sandbox, DYDX, they all have integrated gasless transactions because they know, like, what friction can gas cause in the initial phase for user onboarding, and, like, what it can unlock for them. For example, like, on an average, we have seen like 20% increase in users post gasless integration. That's something, unlocks like a lot of user base, that too in like a small ecosystem we have in crypto for the dApp developers. I think more recently, like in the last 1.5 years, we've been like actively researching on account abstraction. I know like that's been sort of a hot topic in the town, but we've been working on it for almost 1.5 years, and we've been thinking about it for quite some time. So I think with that, it unlocks even more design principles to customize the user journeys and making sure that signing becomes even more easier for users, and key management can be done in a better way. So very excited about the future of applications and how new sort of applications will be seeing happening, because like, trust me, like like new sort of users won't be using apps like Aave, Curve, Uniswap, because it's only meant for like a certain set of crypto savvy users. But if you ask for like normal user who just wants to like try it out of a Web3 application, they want something easy and simple to happen, and that's something we are trying to unlock with the new SDK that launched like a month ago.
Yeah, easy and simple is definitely the way to adoption. And Aniket, you were saying also that more, and that you are looking forward to what the future is and like what's going to be developing, and that you're also going to look into supporting more and more Web3 dApps. So this question is actually for all three of you, but maybe Aniket, you can just continue it on. So you've worked with multiple projects before, and you were also saying earlier that what projects you're very impressed about. But what area in the space do you think is still underdeveloped, and you would actually like to see more growth in?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Something, we recently also started sort of a campaign called it like Pioneers of Web3, where we kind of inviting, 10 application projects all around the globe to help, building with us, help making like more user facing application. So I think one of the areas where I, like always think about is key management. I feel like key management is something a lot of projects have been working on it, and it's been like an issue for quite some time, like how we can eliminate the seed phrase and make sure that these onboarding becomes extremely safe and easy. I know like recently also like a lot of issues be happening on Ledger, but that's sort of an area where I do wanna like see like a lot of development happening, because I think that's kind of the root cause for like some sort of offboarding that happens, because a lot of users, in fact, with MetaMask also, we chat with all the time. They always say like 90% of the users get offboarded because they don't understand the seed phase, like, and there's still not like a sort of a proper solution for key management. So personally, like that's sort of an area for me of interest. So if there's more, innovative ideas on that, we're happy to fund that. We're happy to work with projects who can help us solve that kind of issue. Uh, on the flip side, like when it comes to the application layer, I do want to see like more social applications, because I feel in terms of UX, we are already getting there, as people have been loving like sort of the applications that that are kind of rolling in the market. We just need like more financial layer on top of it to make it like more crypto savvy. So these are the two areas where I'm personally researching, and I also want to see like more ideas and more work happening there.
Joshua, Mia, what about you? What are some of the areas that you would like to see developed? Do you also agree with Aniket?
Yeah, I think having a better experience in improving the UI UX for user onboarding are super important, and providing a easier way for developer to create apps that cater to what users' needs are also really important. I think there's still a lot of opportunity and space for Web3 projects to grow, because if you mirror what Web2, including but not limited to financial infrastructure, there's still a lot of spaces that we can improve. For example, privacy, which is Mystiko is solving, but we also have other opportunity that, for example, use data storage, or ensuring linking online offline data is something that is also really important. I would definitely love to see the space in making sure that making sure more Web2 company could have easy access to convert their users into Web3. So for example, like recently we've been talking to a lot of projects, including but not limited to financial projects. I think a traditional DID application in gaming and healthcare are also a really promising field. And I think bringing all this app that actually already touch billion lives and bring them to Web3s are awesome.
That's great. Am I coming through clear right now? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, we
Yes,
hear
we
you
can hear
clearly.
you. We can hear you.
Okay, great. So to add upon that, yes, of course, and I totally agree. Privacy is very important, and then storage, as well as automation. So we don't talk about this enough in our industry, but smart contracts cannot self-automate, meaning there isn't really a decentralized built into these layer ones, a decentralized if this and that system, right? So automation is lacking. And by the way, I do want to mention that Supra is getting to that game. What's different than us than others is that we just have a shared security paradigm, a singular infrastructure to provide multiple services, and we have great algorithms to do that. So, basically, to kind of paint the picture of what I view the future of blockchain is they are supercomputers that have privacy preserving and data storage capability, and yes, privacy preserving capabilities and storage, they're going to come with a fee. There's a fee, and it'll be a marketplace for that. But also, kind of earlier in this discussion, I kind of talked about where AI kind of integrates with blockchain. And really what it is what we call at our organization a value management system, a VMS, a value management system where now with the advent of AI, et cetera, you can literally have Jarvis type of experience where you say, hey, look, send John, send Peter, 50 units on January 1st, 2025, midnight, exactly if Bitcoin is under, 80,000, X, Y, and Z. You can kind of literally just state what you're doing and it'll form the transaction for you. So running full on AI on a blockchain, I'm not into that personally, but I think AI to have the ability to cryptographically sign transactions on your behalf, like AI, you can articulate it to the average person of what you're trying to do, your intention. and they can form the right transaction and sign on your behalf is inevitable, and it'll happen really soon. And Supra is working on that as well. So to answer your question, that once again, to reiterate, data storage is always an interesting problem because how do you have permanent storage? Of course, we have Arweave and IPFS, and I'm pretty excited about IPFS being EVM compatible. By the way, it's kind of a new development. But privacy is it must happen. It'll happen, and of course, there's contention and two opposing forces of privacy versus regulatory ability to take action. But ultimately, in the end, the last component I think that really needs to be worked on, which Supra is working on, in a matter that is deterministic, believe it or not, is automation, on-chain automation, and cross-chain automation. So that's a little bit of alpha about what we're doing, and I think that the industry at large needs to kind of focus on this a little bit more.
Great, thanks guys for the insight. Oh, Peter, sorry, I think we're talking at the same time. Just a quick one before I forget. Aniket, he had to drop off because he has another engagement, but he says thank you for having us, for having him in the spaces. We have about 10 minutes left in our chat, and we obviously encourage the audience members to ask any questions in the comments if they have any, and we already saw one coming up actually. It is directed to you, Mia. They want to know, someone in the audience wants to know a little bit more about your partnership with Jasmy. Would you be willing to share a little bit?
Yeah, we work with Jasmy when we run testnet. Start from the beginning. Mystiko is hoping to power the privacy of a lot of dev developers, and Jasmy is one of the partners that are interested in engaging Mystiko into one of their applications. So it's the IoT platform that is mostly focusing on Asian markets. So so we've been always having this ongoing conversation to see how Mystiko could be used in their application to protect their user privacy. But the application, the integration is not yet ready. So if there are more progress in terms of how Mystiko could protect private transaction, and on top of that on top of that could be used in IoT, we will definitely keep you guys updated. And of course, if anyone have ideas on how you think privacy can improve your project experience or the user experience of the project you like, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to us and let us know your ideas.
Thank you. I hope that answered your question. It was from Houston. And you heard it. If anyone has any questions or feedback or ideas, reach out to Mystiko. And we have, looking if we have any more questions in the chat. Not at the moment. Perhaps, Peter, do you have any more questions for our guests?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to remind our audience that you can request to be a speaker to ask your question if you want to do it by voice. But yeah, actually, I would like to touch the topic of communities, because community is key in crypto, as we all know. And what role has your community played in creating your infrastructure projects? Because I see that both Mystiko, Biconomy, and Supra oracles are doing a lot of community campaigns. And do you often work with a group of developers from community to create new features and get users' feedback, or do you have a selected testers from the community, or how do you connect your infrastructure with the community members? It's really curious for community members, I guess.
So I can jump in here a little bit. We're taking a page out of the playbook from Airbnb, from Brian Chesky, who, at his Stanford presentation, I don't know if it was like a couple months ago or a couple of years ago, but the advice is relevant, which he got also from Paul Graham from YC, which is build a couple of projects that just absolutely love your service, focus on them, hear them out, and be of service to them, and fix your problems as quickly as you can. And you make them happy, you make a handful of customers happy. That's how you can actually scale. So we're kind of in that phase right now. We have a handful, let's call it less than 15 projects we're working very closely with in ecosystems, and our whole focus is to hear them out. Like, we are in this kind of, position of we're doing our best, but also we realize that there's blind spots, right? We're not perfect at all, and that we want to be better though. But once we solve these things, it's better for every other person or entity or dApp that adopts our service thereafter. So this is kind of the approach we're doing. This is why, while we did launch Mina Alpha on April 14th, none of you know about that. It's because we didn't announce it to the world. We're working with a closed-knit community. They're giving us rapid feedback, and it's, to be honest, it's embarrassing how, like, we're just not perfect. And it's hard to be not perfect because we're striving to be as good as possible. But we're learning so much along the way. I highly recommend, grab 15, 20 partners that are close to you, that are willing to work with you, give you feedback, honest feedback, and have the humility to fix it. And that's kind of the phase that we're at. We're going to be in a much better space in the next few months, but things are moving forward. I want everyone to know that we have launched Mina Alpha, soft launched it. It's happening. We're running our algorithms. Some of our algorithms have been accepted to top academic journals, and we're being really rigorous. You're going to hear a lot more about us from next week beyond, but especially in about 2 months. So anyone that hears this information, just FYI, in the next 45 to 75 days, there's a lot of alpha to be released.
Yeah, those are really exciting news, Joshua, and definitely excited for your new progress. And for Mystical, community is always an important part for us, and I also believe the community is always important for all these Web3 projects, because we do want to make sure that whenever we put together a project, it could be run and governed by everyone who's engaged, and also could share the value and that this project created. So for infrastructure project like Mystical, we're mostly working with developers and maybe sometimes work with user. So in general, the principle for us is that we try to keep up with our users and always have communication with our developers. So for us to build a community, we always actively participate and host developer workshops and hope that we could understand what's the demand of our of the developer. For example, what wallet actually want, what DEX actually wants, and what are their privacy concern, and who would be the potential target user that they want us to add value to. So having this constant communication with all these top projects is always helpful for us to understand what community need, and constantly giving feedback to the community to know that there's always progress from our projects. And of course, we always broadcast our values and visions about what privacy, how Web3 privacy should look like, and how Mystical could play in the role to make sure that privacy is a standard norm for everyone in Web3 instead of a one-time thing like Tornado Cash. So that's why we often constantly try to host AMA and host hackathons with all of our partners, including all the layer ones like BNB, Polygon, Avalanche, and all the change that we work with, but also work with um, community that have really strong tech insight, for example, like Morningstar. And that's why also, again, thank you so much for inviting us to this conference. So and so for us, keeping this communication going with the developers are pretty important for us. But other than that, I also believe, having more Web3 native and interesting way to gamify the whole process for both developer and user to know about the project are also important. For example, I think GameFi, working with GameFi or issuing a project NFT would be a pretty interesting way to engage early contributor and also engage incentivize community members to give you feedback and also try out the product so that we can continue reiterating. And having said that, there's a new update for Mystical, is that Mystical has already enabled private transaction on both Ethereum and BNB chain, and we are expecting more change to be live. We're expected to be live on more mainnet, including Polygon, Avalanche, etc. And we are running campaigns in NFT campaign, OG NFT, to kind of incentivize users to try out our products and give us feedback. So if you want to learn more about how this campaign works and doing OG NFT, feel free to follow us, and we will always give you updates on what is new about this campaign. And of course, anytime, since we're working with developer closely, if any of you would like to see how Mystiko could add value to your project, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Congrats.
I just want to chime in here for 10 seconds. That's amazing. Congratulations, Mystiko. We're big fans of the work you're doing. It's important for the space. I also want to mention that we are on 42 testnets, and we're on a couple of mainnets, and we're scaling to, we think by the end of the year, we can be on the order of 50 ecosystems. We hope to join you, Mystiko, as you grow as well. In any way we can support you, we're very happy to do so. Thank you so much, Morningstar, for setting this up. We're happy to be a part of your ecosystem.
Thank you guys. You are really the ones that are growing here, and it's so great to see your projects develop into bigger spaces. And congratulations, really, on everything that is already happened and going to happen. I think we're going to close the conversation here. We're exactly at the top of the hour again, so time really flew past there, and we really enjoyed everything that you have, taught us during this session. I've learned a lot myself about infrastructure, so thank you so much. There was an open invitation from all three of our guests to the audience. If you have any, contributing ideas, to please reach out. There are some alphas to definitely look out for, so make sure to do that. We, are going to say goodbye to you for this Twitter Spaces, but as you know, we host almost weekly or bi-weekly Twitter Spaces and interviews with interesting people from the space, just like Joshua, Mia, and Aniket. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And I will leave it at that. Thank you so much, everyone, again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.